What's up guys, Handish here, and today we're jumping back in with some Destiny 2 news and roundups. So we're going to talk about a new weapon this week which does some pretty monstrous damage. It's probably one you won't want to sleep on, we'll talk about that in a moment. We have some new details on an exotic quest that will unfold soon, and it's going to be a bit of a grind, so we'll talk about that. We've got some discussion about Destiny 3, and some neat insights from reliable sources about the future of Destiny content and what Bungie are working on behind the scenes. And on top of that, we've got some new loot keys which have been added to the game, a new raid challenge mode, and a bunch of other stuff to break down in this video, guys. So I hope you enjoy it as always, but now it's time to get into it. So first up, I hope you guys have been having awesome holidays, whatever you're up to. There are a couple of things going on in Destiny this week, which we'll talk about. On top of this though, this week, of course, we got a new weapon frame, and it's for the Black Armory sword. So this is one that was maybe a little bit hit and miss. Legendary swords in D2 aren't the most popular thing right now, and I think swords in general need a little bit of love. But this Black Armory sword actually is a little bit different because it can roll out with a perk which no other sword can. So we can actually get Surrounded. Now, Surrounded is a pretty strong bonus. It's going to increase damage when enemies are in close proximity. And of course, you're always going to be pretty close with a sword, but Surrounded actually gives you around about 40% damage buff. On top of this though, we can now get the Surrounded spec mod, and that bumps up the damage of Surrounded once again. Now my friend Jarv sent me this gameplay because I haven't been lucky and got a Surrounded drop yet, but what it means is you can actually do over 100,000 damage on something like a Forge boss with the right roll of this sword, which is actually a pretty decent amount of damage. However, if you combine that with damage buffs with a very good roll of the sword, you can do some even more insane damage in the right situation. So with Surrounded procced and the Surrounded spec mod, you can see right here my pal Jarv inside of a Well of Radiance, which is empowered, is getting over 140k of damage per heavy hit with the sword. When you consider some of the strike modifiers that you can get, the amount of powerful enemies in Gambit, things like blockers especially, there are actually quite a few opportunities to use one of these swords with Surrounded, as well as the Surrounded spec mod that you can get from A1. And from what we know, this is the strongest sword inside of the game in terms of damage output. So I'll link a video from my pal Jarv down below if you want to check out some of the other rolls and some of the numbers that you'll see with different bonuses. The pool of perks on swords is pretty small, so it's relatively easy to get a good roll of this thing dropped. Now though, let's talk about an exotic quest in the game. I spoke recently about a rare Black Armory bounty and how this is going to be linked to an exotic quest, and I had quite a few questions about this. So essentially it's for the mysterious box, or the continuation of the mysterious box. So right now we need one more key for this. The final key, from what we can tell, is going to come from a key mold, so potentially dropped inside of Niobe Labs or the Boguzia Forge. We'll get a key mold, and it requires a material that comes only from Watchers on the Leviathan. And it will actually require us to harvest parts from every single Watcher in the underbelly of Leviathan, so that's going to be a bit of a grind. And then the key mold will require a material known as a glimmering amethyst. And this can be found in supply caches, public events, and strike chests. And once the key is ready, you need to charge the Boguzia Forge in the European Dead Zone and finish the ignition to obtain the Black Armory key. At that point, the mysterious box should open up, but it's actually just the beginning of the next quest. So from what we can find about this, the mysterious box will actually give us an artifact, and Ada1 calls it a decryption device inside of the interactions, and somehow this will turn into some kind of unidentified frame. This is where we'll need to complete a rare bounty, and these bounties drop when you complete daily bounties for Black Armory. They are completely random drops. Definitely look out for them though. They're somewhat rare and they take quite a while to complete, so assuming that we actually need to get one dropped, this quest step in itself is going to take a little while. Now if you get one dropped, as long as you can complete it, you'll be able to hold on to it for as long as necessary. It could prove useful to turn in for this quest. Also in this part of the quest, we'll need to complete the strike the Pyramidion to collect Radiant Phase Glass for the unidentified frame, and this frame will need to be crafted in the Boguzia Forge, so that will happen sometime after the launch of Niobe Labs. Then it appears that a different quest line kind of kicks off here. Well, from what I can tell, this is linked to this quest, so we get a mysterious datapad. You can see there's some pretty curious text right there. And we'll also receive a device called the Obsidian Accelerator, which will need to be returned to Ada1. There will be a quest chain called Lock and Key, and this primarily takes place in the European Dead Zone. And from what we can tell, there will be a series of other steps inside of this part of the quest, and that may actually be to unlock the Boguzia Forge. Ultimately, we'll be able to craft the unidentified frame in that forge, but we won't get a weapon from it. As we can see, we need to return to Ada and show her the artifact that we forged, and it says it's definitely not the weapon you were expecting. For now, that is everything that we can tell about this quest. There's been plenty of speculation about what exactly the reward is going to be here. We know that Jotun, as well as Izanagi's Burden, have not been uncovered. If I had to guess, I would say Izanagi's Burden. There have also been multiple references to railguns though. I've spoken about these previously. A developer working on something titled Railgun. Also a weapons order visible in the annex in the tower, referring to rail cannons. So maybe considering this says it's not the weapon you expected, that could be a thing. Bungie have definitely teased us about it pretty intentionally if you ask me, but all speculation aside, We do know for sure that the mysterious box quest, the lock and key quest which is part of it, is definitely going to be a pretty long form pursuit. So let me know your thoughts about that down below, the weapon rewards that we might get for it, and at least we have that heads up that we're going to have to unlock quite a bit of stuff to ultimately finish working on this quest. Now though, I just wanted to round up a few quick things about the Dreaming City. Of course, we've spoken about the very spoilery cutscene recently, the possibility of a new Hunter Vanguard emerging at some point. There is still also the pursuit of Wish 15 in the game, but interestingly, considering Wish 15 is linked to the raid, Bungie recently added 2 new loot keys which are linked to the Last Wish raid. So we do have the Celestial key as well as the Empyreal key, and these previously were not visible in the database, but then were modified recently, which suggests they potentially could drop at some point in the game soon. We don't know anything more concrete about it just yet, but there are new raid keys, so potentially they could be linked to Wish 15. Definitely unusual that these would be added now, but also this week we saw the continuation of the Dreaming City story with some new dialogue from a very unhappy ghost at the Queen's Court, so check this out.
Marasov, we need answers and your people need help. They are suffering while you're busy with what exactly? I don't know because you don't tell us. You never say anything. Nothing plain, nothing useful. Guess you're too wrapped up in your own affairs to be a good queen. The curse has begun again. This will be the 7th try for the Guardians. I don't see how this time around will be any different. We throw ourselves at this thing again and again, and it never changes. How can anyone here go on when there's no guarantee they'll see the future they're fighting for?
So that's the dialogue from our ghost this week. Obviously, we discovered something interesting about Prince Aldrin recently. We've seen that the curse has just continued to cycle over and over, and now the ghost is expecting answers. So it looks like in one of the future weeks, we might get a response from Morrisov. Either way, as the story unfolds in Dreaming City, I thought it was interesting that those raid keys were modified and are now visible in the database. Maybe there's something else to come there. Now though, let's speak about Destiny 3. There was a pretty interesting comment from Jason Schreier in a recent Kotaku article, where some folks were speculating about how Bungie might approach Destiny 3. And Jason Schreier has a lot of sources inside of the games industry. He knows a lot of stuff about Bungie and has also leaked and revealed information about Bungie projects in the past, but he said that's one of the big ongoing conversations at Bungie right now, I believe, how to approach Destiny 3, how it can continue what's working so well with Forsaken, and whether it should be a different SKU or a continuation of D2, and so on. So it's pretty interesting that he says that right now. I guess exactly how Bungie tackle the next game is definitely a big question for them, and there's certainly a lot riding on it for the franchise. Also though, Anon9 did cryptically post to Reddit with a few different things about Destiny 3, firstly suggesting that Europa will be a primary location in the new game. They also said that there will be no planets outside of our solar system in D3 vanilla, and also said as far as they know that Savathun isn't necessarily going to be a main focus of Destiny 3, which is interesting, but also Anon added that they can 100% say in Destiny 3 there will be multiple Darkness subclasses. And in the recent Grimoire anthology release from Bungie, there was even some artwork showing Taken Guardians right here, which is pretty cool. Obviously Anon9 has correctly leaked a lot of stuff about Destiny. It's very early days to talk about D3 from the sounds of things, but just some interesting stuff that we currently know about Destiny 3. The leaks tell us that D3 is definitely beginning its development right now, and in terms of Destiny 2's performance right now, there was a recent super data report that included Destiny 2, and they said, Destiny 2's Forsaken boost was short-lived, we estimated additional content revenue for Destiny 2 dropped 63% year over year, and overall engagement and monetization seem to have reverted back to the same levels seen before the launch of Forsaken in September. So obviously with the struggles that Destiny 2 has seen since launch, it appears that that struggle isn't necessarily over just yet. As we do know though, we can expect to continue to get content for Destiny 2, but this does put into context just how important D3 is going to be, so I'd love to hear your thoughts about that down below, guys. Finally though, there is a new raid challenge for the Scourge of the Past raid, and it's the all-for-one, one-for-all challenge, and essentially to do this challenge you have to have every player collect and discharge every single one of the buffs in phase 1 of the boss fight. So basically to do this, we split into 2 teams of 3, one team that would go downstairs, one team that would stay upstairs, but the teams actually swap positions every time the team down below grabs one of each buff. So I'm in the team down below right here, we go down, each of us is going to have to grab one of a different buff. Once we've got those, the team up top will take down the servitor, and we go and charge that one buff to a specific plate where you spawn the tanks in. Each player is going to be paired with another player that's on the other team, so once I've discharged this buff, I can tell my partner to grab that same buff. So if I grab red circle for example, I just punch it once right here. When the team open up the doors, I go up top, discharge that into the top plate, tell my partner that they also need to grab red circle, and then I fill in for the roll up top. Once my partner is done down below and the rest of the team have their buffs, they can come up, and then I'll need to grab a different buff, so the next time I go round, I'll grab square for example, and of course the other guys with me down here are grabbing a different buff. You essentially have to make sure that you don't grab the same buff twice. Once we've all got one, we can call out to the team up top. They can open the doors. I will go and slam the same plate once again. Tell my partner this time they need the white square. They'll repeat that process, and then next time I go downstairs, I'm going to need triangle because that's the only buff I haven't yet had. And then I can tell my partner when they go down for the final time, they will also need to get the white triangle. And essentially, if everyone in the team does this, of course, we'll all be handling different buffs at a different time, but you will have given every player each buff at least once. And that's basically how this works. So you have 3 damage phases. That's more than enough time to do good damage, especially at max level. You may actually have to hold off on some of your damage to make sure you don't kill him early. And that is essentially the challenge. So let me know if you've done that down below. But guys, that is going to summarize today's video. Lots of information in this one, but I hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on any of it down below. Good luck if you're grinding for that sword. I'd love to hear thoughts about the mysterious box grind that we're going to get pretty soon, or any of that stuff about Destiny 3 and how you think the game should be handled. But if you're new around here, guys, a like is very much appreciated. And be sure to hit that subscribe button to see a lot more Destiny 2 content. For now, though, thanks a lot for tuning in. And whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.